What's going on, guys? It is Friday, September 29th, and let's do a quick recap of the week. This was a really good week, not only for me personally, but for the team as a whole. So let's take a look at some of our better trades and setups of the week. As we can see, a little movement out of this little consolidation this week in the SPY. Nothing too crazy. And the same thing can be said for the Qs, a little bounce here on some decent volume, but nothing too crazy. So, not too much to report on here in the indexes. So with that being said, let's get into some of the better trades of the week. So I did not personally catch this trade, but it's one we've been watching for a while now. Google has been in a nice tight squeeze. And for you new members, a squeeze is basically when the chart pattern consolidates and volatility tightens up. So imagine this to be like a rubber band. Whenever you see a squeeze like this, at some point it has to release energy to one side or the other. In this situation, we are watching Google stock inside this squeeze, waiting for a breakout, and that happened today. Now, though I didn't personally take this trade, I know a few of you guys did, and you did very well, so congrats to you guys on that. But for you newer members, and for you current members, this is a great example of the exact kind of trade I look for. A tight squeeze, and then what I look for is that buying volume to come in. These bars down here represent, the demand for the shares, how many shares are being bought, how much money is coming into the stock, and it's supply and demand. Raising demand, the price rises. So, for me personally, the ideal entry would have been one of these bars inside the 195-minute chart. However, I was focused on other positions. I didn't get this one, so congrats to you guys who did. And to all you new members, just go over this real quick. I look at two charts. I look at the daily chart, and what the daily chart is, every bar on this chart represents an entire day of price action for this stock. So this bar right here is today's bar. So that's today's action in Google. It went as high as 976 and as low as 967. So I look at the daily, and I also look at the 195-minute chart. Now each bar is half of an entire day's session. So what I like to do is I find a setup on the daily chart that I like. Now I had identified Google as a nice tight setup, looked like it was going to pop to the upside, so I then would switch to the 195 and then wait for what we got here, which is buying volume. Again, volume measures, the buying activity in the stock. You want to enter when that buying activity is ramping, so anywhere in here would have been a perfect trade entry. So we had Google. A nice trade of mine earlier on the week was YY. Blow up our 195 here. And this wasn't too long of a squeeze, but it tried to break out. It failed. It came right back down, and then you can see as soon as it came back down, that buying volume popped. I got in here, and I sold the next morning, at the highs before it dropped. So that was a good trade. And all you new members, just get a good feel for these kinds of setups. Again, here's another squeeze from a few weeks ago. Nice and tight. That demand for the stock rises, and the price rises as well. So YY was a great trade. As was SolarEdge. Same thing, guys. I'll show you the daily first. We had a nice squeeze on the daily as well as a 195. So I was watching the stock in here. When I saw that buying volume increase, I took my position. Let me see. I may have the actual. Let me take a look. Nope. Alright. I don't have my chart notes on that one at the moment. But same thing I trade all the time, guys. Nice tight squeeze. That volume comes in. I take an entry. And then when I see the weakness return, I sell. So I was in here and out up around this area, and I believe that was a $400 or $500 profit on that trade in just a day. And yesterday's big trade, which was blue, same setup, guys. Nice squeeze. Stock is trading sideways. The volatility is low. It has to release energy at some point, as you can see when that buying volume came in. Pop right to the upside. I caught this right here yesterday, right around 133 before it broke out. And this morning, As you can see by that big, whoops, where are we going? As you can see from that big red bar, a lot of selling came in and pushed the stock down. So I entered here and I sold right around here for the most part, and that was a, let me see, that was about a $700-800 profit or so. So that was a good trade, guys. Again, if you kind of look at the charts, going back in time, you see that most major moves come out of a squeeze. Here's a squeeze right here, pop to the upside, a squeeze, move to the upside, a squeeze, big move up, and once again a squeeze over here, and another move to the upside. So all you new members, get very familiar with the term squeeze. You're going to hear me say it a lot, and that is what I look for. Another trade we had this week, when did I take this? I took this today, actually, was TPX. So again, we're in a squeeze here on the daily. I'm going to blow up on 195 here. Nice tight squeeze on the 195. When that volume came in this morning, I took my entry, and this trade was off to a great start. However, you can see it quickly faded towards the end of the day. A little bit of selling came in, so that kind of put a dent in that profit. I was up about $350 or so, and I think now I'm closer to break even. So that happens in trading, guys. But again, this is basically the only thing I trade. A nice tight squeeze, and then I wait for those pops in volume to take my entry. Another good trade I got going on right now, and some of the guys in the group, is VFC. You can see our nice tight squeeze here on the daily, as well as in 195. So what are we looking for? We're looking for that increase in volume. Over the last few days, we've gotten this very obvious, so I started my position yesterday, and as that volume came in today and followed through, I put more into the stock. So I have about $2,500 or so in the stock at the moment, and I believe I'm up a few hundred. A little bit of selling here on the closing bar today, but in my opinion, nothing to be worried about at all for the time being. Take a look at the daily. This chart's, it's in fine condition. Nothing to be worried about. We're still well within the squeeze, and we're still seeing a lot of increased volume. So I would not be surprised next week to see this one run towards, maybe 66 and higher. Would not surprise me at all. So VFC, another good trade in the week. Up a few hundred on that one as well. Alright, so that's a review of this week's trades and, the movement of the overall market. A pretty good week for me, all in all. You can't let these things bother you, but we're currently in a market where moves really don't follow through. And what I mean by that is that, you have a great squeeze signal, and typically, when you get a breakout day like this, at least, the very next day or a few days, it's going to continue higher. However, blue did not continue higher. Solar Edge did not continue higher. And let me see, Solar Edge, blue, and nor did YY. YY kind of, faked here and went up a little bit more, but again, no crazy conviction, on the second day. So, it's interesting, doing the math, and of course this is all kind of speculation, but, if we did get a few, follow-through days this week on the majority of my trades, I probably would have had a $10,000 to $12,000, profit week. However, because we're kind of in this fadey market where nothing really continues, no strength comes through in the second day, I closed the week off with just about $3,000 to $4,000 in profit. So, not a bad week at all things considered. But again, I'm just pretty confident right now that when the market does wake up and we do see continued strength on the next day and some actual follow through, like this, guys, look at, you get a squeeze, it pops, and it continues to move rather than this, beautiful move on Monday and then next morning party's over. That's not typical, in a strong market. We're kind of going, flipping back and forth between, strong and weak here. Here's a shot of the overall market. So we're kind of really in no man's land still. But I'm not seeing, true signs of weakness within the market. Leading names are holding up all well. You're not seeing an overwhelming amount of selling, so it is it's very possible that, the next, call it 3 months or so, we continue higher in the market. But, for the time being, it's just a lack of conviction and a lack of follow-through buying on a lot of these trades. So it's kind of making things tough, and it's kind of forcing a lot of us, and me personally, to, have to have your finger on the trigger. So coming into this morning on my blue trade, I was up about $1,400 or so in profit. But of course, at the open, we got weak and ended up selling that for about $700 to $800 in profit. Which, again, guys, that's great. I'm not trying to piss on making $800. That's incredible. When you look at what the average person gets paid per hour, and and the work they have to do for it, we're just pressing buttons. And of course, it's a lot harder than just pressing buttons. But again, even if you make $100 profit, you got to keep in mind, $100 is $100. That's great, and $800 is awesome, and $4,000 in a week is great as well. $4,000 a week, that puts you at around $200,000 a year. That's not bad at all. But I got some huge goals. John Carter's my competition. He makes who the hell knows how much a year, millions and millions and millions. So if you ever hear me talking like I'm not excited about $1,000 profit, I am excited. I am very grateful to be able to make money like that quick. Only 3 years ago, I was working at a gym, bringing home $600 a month, or not even. I'm sorry, I was getting paid bi-weekly, $400 a month. That's tough, and now I'm able to pull days off like this. So I'm very fortunate. I don't ever want to sound unexcited about days like this and weeks like this, but I do have so much confidence in myself and us as a group that I just want to continue to aim higher and higher. So with that riveting speech being over, let's look at some setups for next week. My favorite is Yandex. I like this because we're in a nice squeeze here, and what you can see is, I'll pull up our 195. Alright, so we're here in a nice squeeze on the 195. I tried getting in here the other day. It turned into a $600 loss, but here's why I'm interested even more in this squeeze now. Got a signal here. It fell pretty hard, but very quickly at the bottom here, you can see the buying came in and it stopped it. It stopped it in its tracks, and the traders out there controlling a lot of money, they said, nope, you come down towards 32 and we're going to take whatever you got. And now the stock is turning back to the upside. So anytime you see this in a squeeze, it's great. You had one shot, two shots, and now we're coming back for a third try. That's usually a good time to do a pretty good position size, because the likelihood that it got stopped and stopped and stopped and is going back up again means that the sellers might be gone and that the buyers can come through and kind of overwhelm this to the upside. So Yandex, definitely a stock I got my eye on for next week, as is Yelp. Yelp's one I've been watching for a while now. Very tight squeeze here on the daily. Pop open the 195 here. We can see some buying volume is returning to the stock. So again, it's tried a few times to break out of the squeeze here with no luck. So, third time is usually the charm. That buying volume has returned again. I'm going to be watching this next week, and what I'm going to look for is another strong day of volume, a strong day of demand for the stock, somewhere inside the squeeze, and then I will take my position and go long. And that's that, guys. I'm going to work on some more videos for you guys and send them out soon. I hope everyone has a good night, a good weekend, and be safe.